Welcome back. Today we are going to take a peek at subtracting integers. And when we're subtracting integers, we have to keep in mind that our addition rules. So if you remember the addition rules, we have if the signs are the same sign, so I'm just going to abbreviate this. We're going to say same sign our rule is to add and keep. What does that mean? Well, it means if we have 4 plus 4, it equals positive 8. If we have negative 4 plus negative 4, the answer is, you guessed it, negative 8. So same sign, add and keep. Now, what about different signs? Well, if we have different signs, we are going to subtract. And use the sign of the number with the larger absolute value. With the larger absolute value. Okay, so let's do a couple of examples here because we got to make sure we understand this before we move forward. All right, so same sign, negative 5 plus negative 3. I like to put my second number, if it's a negative, I like to put in parentheses so I don't get confused. Negative 5 plus negative 3, same sign, it's going to stay. Add and keep, so negative 8. But let's say we have a different sign. Let's say negative 10 plus positive 14. Negative 10 plus positive 14. We are going to subtract the numbers. 14 minus 10 is 4. Use the sign of the number with the larger absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 10 is 10. The absolute value of 14 is 14. 14 is bigger, so the answer is positive 14. All right, well, let's pretend we have a different problem. Let's say that we had 53 plus negative 61. Okay, so different signs. We're going to subtract the numbers. 61 minus 53 is 8. The absolute value of 53 is 53. The absolute value of negative 61 is 61. So 61 is the greater absolute value. And so therefore, the answer will be negative 8. All right. So we want to make sure that we had those down pat because subtracting integers is a tricky situation. Here is the rule. When we're subtracting integers, what we actually want to do is we want to add the opposite. So subtracting integers, this is our rule. Subtracting integers. The rule is going to be to add the opposite. What does it mean to add the opposite? Well, first of all, the opposite of a number, we got to understand that. The opposite of a number means the other side of the number line. So let's start with a quick number line here. And let's put in our 0. And let's pretend that we have a negative 13. Well, the opposite of negative 13 would be to go all the way to the other side. So we want to go all the way to the other side. So we want to get to 0, and then we're going to go beyond 0, and we would be at positive 13. So negative 13 and positive 13 are opposites. That's what we mean by the opposite. All right, so now let's apply this to a problem here. So let's do a problem that we already know. 10 minus 7. We know that 10 minus 7 is going to be 3. All right, we know it's 3, but let's use our integer rules because just because they're positive doesn't mean they don't follow the same integer rule. We're going to say add the opposite of our rule. Now we remember this with LCO. Leave the first number, change the subtraction to addition, opposite of the second number. Here's what that means. When we leave the first number, it stays a 10. It doesn't change at all. Then we want to change the subtraction to addition. And we want to use the opposite of 7, which is going to be negative 7. Well, right now, I know you're thinking, wait a second. We just did this. This is addition, and you're absolutely right. 10 plus negative 7. Our rule is that if they have the different sign, we subtract the numbers. 10 minus 7 is 3, and use the sign of the larger number that has the larger absolute value. So 10 has the larger absolute value than negative 7. Therefore, the answer is going to be positive 3. Now, I know you're saying, wait a second, but that's super easy. I know this. Why did we have to go through all the trouble of changing and finding the opposites? Well, because they're not always that straightforward. Let's take this example. Negative 13 minus 12. Ooh, yeah, a little bit different now, right? So not as straightforward, but we can follow the same rules. So we use our rules of leaving the first, changing to addition, and then we add the opposite. So we're going to leave the first number. Negative 13 does not change at all. We're going to change the subtraction into addition. And the opposite of 12 is negative 12. And now we have an easier problem. Same sign, and we're going to add and keep them together. So 13 plus 12 is 25. And they're both negative, so it stays negative. Negative 25. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, that doesn't make sense. When we subtract, the number's supposed to get smaller. Well, let's check a number line. Number lines can always help us understand. Now, I'm not going to write out every single number on here, but let's pretend that we started over here at 0. And it tells us to move in a negative fashion to 13, right? Because we want to go to negative 13. So we go to negative 13. Now let's say that this is negative 13. If we were going to subtract 12 or add negative 12, notice subtracting goes to the left. We're still going in the leftward direction. All right, I just said leftward, I know. And we would go this way 12 spaces. And if we did that, we're actually increasing the size of this negative number to negative 25. Again, the number line helps it make a clear picture for us. So trust, leave, change, opposite. All right, it's an easy way to remember these subtraction problems. Leave, change, opposite. Easiest way to remember it. Leave, change, opposite. Or you could say we add the opposite. But let's try one more example before I let you guys depart, okay? Let's pretend that we have a negative 14, and we're going to subtract a negative 21. Now, this is a problem that sometimes plays tricks on our brain. Because what's trying to happen here is our brain is saying, okay, we're going to subtract, but we're subtracting a negative. What does that mean? Well, make it simple for yourself. Follow the rules. Leave, change, opposite. Leave the negative 14 alone. Change the subtraction sign to addition. The opposite of negative 21 is positive 21. Now we add. The rule for adding two numbers together is that if they have the opposite sign, we subtract their absolute values. 21 minus 14 is 7. We use the sign of the number with the larger absolute value, which in this case is the 21. So it's positive 7. And that is our solution. If we were to check this on the number line, what we'd find is that when we subtract a negative, this is the part that a lot of students that I have over the years just really can't wrap their head around. So I'm going to try to illustrate it here with a number line, all right? So let's pretend for a moment that we went in the negative fashion to 14. So we're going to go this way, and we end ourselves at negative 14. That's our first number. If we were going to subtract, right? So imagine that we're a little person here, and we're going to stand up on this line. We're facing this direction. Because that's subtraction. Subtraction means face left. But the negative 21 says to take 21 steps backwards. So we're not actually stepping forwards. We're actually stepping this way 21 steps. That's what it means. Subtract, look left, but walk backwards. In reality, the double negatives make it a positive. And that's where we come up with this idea of positive 7 for our solution. Okay? So it's not a trick. It plays a funny trick on your brain. All right, but there's nothing wrong with this. It's leave, change, opposite. Trust it. It's going to work. All right, guys. I know we're throwing a lot at you, but walk back through the video a few times if you need to. I think it'll help you out, and we'll come back to it in class.